Welcome back as we continue our coverage of the Baberspan 250, the second round of the Ural and Fila Africa Inland Off-Road Championship. Plenty of stories and drama coming back from the prologue, and once again, the Baberspan 250 living up to its take no prisoners reputation. Before the racing, we caught up with BD Terblanche from Fila Africa.
I'm BD Terblanche from Fila Africa. It's the fourth year in a row that we've been a part of this event. It's nice and wet. We're enjoying the day very much. You can see all the cars coming in is full of mud. We're presenting our new truck, the Ural truck from Fila Africa. This truck is a rough terrain vehicle, very durable, and yeah, we enjoy it to be here with you. Thank you very much.
Ural Trucks giving us a lot to talk about, but with the big dog moved out the way, it's up to the race cars to now take center stage, and Baberspan 250 about to get fired off in emphatic style with the big Nissan locked and loaded and good to go. For the Ural Trucks and Fila Africa Inland Off-Road Championship, it's important to note that the main race is run in real time. In other words, you start in the time gaps as recorded in the prologue. This way, the racing is in real time. The competitor who crosses the line first come the end of the race. No calculations need to be made. When the flag drops, if you're the first car to see it, you are the winner. Ernst Roberts was the first to chase down. Then it was going to be Jannie Visser. The G22 was going to be a story to watch with Michael de Beer, and the in-car footage shows us how much work goes on in these side-by-sides and how busy it does truly get when you start attacking and the time starts ticking when you go off-road racing. The G22 were going to be a huge story. We've been talking about how fast those side-by-sides have become the last few seasons, but we're yet to see one take the overall win. Could today be the day? The D11 of Stompie Mainhardt were looking good as well, the first of the Land Cruisers, and then Lawrence van Wyk in the D1. The D-Class was going to be an absolute nail-biter on the championship as well as the category, and the Ds can run the numbers to climb all the way up to challenge for top threes overall. Glen Turon and Bumblebee, what a sight to see that thing in full flight. And they were going to get chased down by the Polaris. We're expecting to see the Polarises get a move on. There's been a lot of talk about maybe 2 or 3 more of these joining the tour come later on in 2020. The Fissers, what a chance to go out, and just to prove my point about how close the time gaps were, around about 10th place coming out the prologue, there is 1, 2, 3 cars separated by 1, 2, 3 seconds, racing straight out the gates. The P44 of Cobus Marie was positioned nicely just outside of the top 10 overall, and the Ps, depending on the way that the track is laid out, if it's technical, they can run the numbers, and the early sand sections would have been great fun in the Class P open wheelers. They do tend to sit right on top of all the sand and the roost. They were going to be chased down nicely by Louis Schlebusch, the side-by-side, a very aggressive attack and approach coming in from the Schlebusch crew in the G13. Hopefully they'd be able to hold it all together. And then Heini Stumfer, remember, he was the man, and this was the car that opened up early in the morning, the first out on the prologue. We caught up with Steyn Viviers coming in off the prologue. He seemed to be pretty chipper, lost a little bit of body panels coming in from the prologue. That wasn't going to hold him back though, and they were looking for that consistency that's eluded them in the turbo diesel wagon. Johan Visser and the Class E's. Now this seems to be one of those races where we do see a lot of the Class E's coming to the front. We're expecting to see something like a 45% attrition rate. Hopefully everyone does make it safely to the finish, but historically Baberspan takes a chunk of the field with only a small percentage making it to the finish to be able to score the points. If you run good at Baberspan, you run good for the championship. The E's were all over each other on the prologue as well. Johan Visser, Dolph de Toy and Johan Besson were closely matched, and one of the older Toyotas, everyone was going to be cheering for this, the unstoppable Toyota Hilux. Rodney Kirk had been able to get himself into a position to be able to start the event, and this crew were going to be trying desperately to get it all the way to the finish line. The E14 needed to see some checkers in 2020. Aki Kruger and the F-Class So you can see, almost a stock standard bucky. This was going to be bone shaking and spine jarring the whole way through the day. It was going to be a lumpy, bumpy ride for the E's and the F-Class production vehicles. Next up was going to be Suisse Moret, the E26 that had a mid-pack qualifying, and again it was going to be all about the survival. Then the unstoppable Isuzu in the Duke Civils. That was going to be all about the Duplessis brothers bringing it home for the charge. In the B-Class, Sifi van Schalkwyk was going to be doing it all the way through. He was going to have to be watching his mirrors though, because the girls would come on. They seemed to have solved their problems, the mechanical that they had during the prologue, and they were going to be in it to win it once again, just to bring it all the way to the line. And then the A69, Martin van Jaarsveld and the kid were going to be out there charging. The Ural truck and the Fila boys were out there. Ooh, don't want to hit any of those as we go along. Thankfully, most of the guys have got windscreens, apart from the Class G side-by-sides and the rest of the special vehicles. That would be an interesting situation inside the cab, wouldn't it? The De Beer brothers surprised everyone with their pace, having qualified first in Class G and third overall, running as high as second overall at one point and gaining a bit on the time of the overall leaders. Could this have been the day that the Class Gs took the overall? Well, it would have been, but sadly it all came to nothing due to an unforeseen mechanical issue. Their side-by-side runs 2 fuel tanks, as with many systems, and the fuel pump, which is supposed to transfer fuel from one side to the other, failed, leaving them stranded and dry. A rather unfortunate and frustrating end to their first appearance in the series, and a case very much of what could have been. But rest assured, the boys will be back, and the pace will be high. The G22 is here, and definitely means business. Although competition is everything, even between family members, off-road racing also provides a camaraderie like no other form of motorsport does. The ladies' car B1 managed to make their way past the guys in B2, and they raced like this for the greater part of the main race. Unfortunately though, both cars did eventually succumb to mechanical maladies, and the family had nothing to show for their troubles, other than 2 DNFs and a couple of war stories for the big drive home. A big shame for the Van Schalkwyks and the Croshaws, but as with many who will fall prey to the Baberspan 250, they will be back. For Kobus Fourie and Philippe Leroux, they look good in the early stages of the main race, chasing hard after the Macanetti brothers who qualified well. Unfortunately, their race also came to a halt, leaving them with a DNF, which could prove costly come the end of the Class P Championship. Even at this early stage of the race, the Baberspan curse was in great effect. The Macanettis also had a race to forget. Firstly, they suffered a rollover at speed, but the crew were unharmed, thankfully, and the car was a little worse for wear. They continued on at speed, all for naught though, as they encountered a big rock a short distance into the second of the 2 racing loops, damaging their suspension beyond repair. What a race, and what an event this really is. The Van Jaarsvelds had a bit of a nightmare start to their campaign in the BAT Spec 4. Suffering alternator problems in the prologue, they managed to get that fixed and had to start all the way from the back of the field. Senior is a hard charger, and as can be seen, he took no prisoners, making his way up and through the order to plough the traffic. But all the speed came to nothing, as the pair suffered a low-speed rollover, damaging their suspension in the process, and recorded a DNF. For Ahmed Yada and Keith Smith, they were fired up after their first win at the season opener. Ahmed always showed good pace, but reliability was lacking. With the win under their belt, they were hoping for more of the same, and it clearly looked like it was going to happen. But a front broken suspension part was their undoing. The Baberspan 250 claimed another superstar and would-be winner. Another long day in the office for Wayne Smith and Victor Fincham after they struggled at the Excelsior 250. This time, a DNF though. Wow. One by one they started, one by one they fall. Johan Bassan and Divan Kutsia gave it their all in the E11 Hilux. Never one to stop trying, Johan drove like a man possessed. Perhaps not the ideal way to tackle the iconic Baberspan event, but who are we to tell a racer to slow down? It's not in their genetic makeup. No matter what the strategy is beforehand, when the flag drops, it's all flat out from there. But in the end, Baberspan won. Another DNF. It was starting to look like whoever could make the finish was going to make the money. Make no mistake though, repairs can be made, and the cars will race once again. The Duplessis brothers, Ignis and Gerard, had their fair share of problems throughout the race in the Isuzu. Bouncing the Class E Isuzu around the course, they also became a victim of the conditions and had to withdraw from the race when the Isuzu cried, "No more, thank you very much." Historically, it has been suspension that takes the most pounding in the tough and changing conditions here at Baberspan. Dolph the Toy is never seen taking it easy. He's really become one of the superstars of this tour. He mostly knows one speed, and that is fast. But suspension problems, as we spoke about, hit the E2 Hilux, as can be seen. He tried to soldier on to reach the finish line, but the team gave it their best to get the Hilux across the finish, but it all came to no avail. Baberspan claimed another one. Next was going to be the Visser brothers. Could they beat the untamable terrain of Baberspan? It was the first time out for the pairing of the Visser brothers, both having navigated plenty of time for Dad before. Jannie's Class S Bakkie proved a little bit too much for the youngsters. Looking at the cosmetic damage on the Bakkie, they certainly charged hard, but mechanical issues finally put paid in the end to what would have been a great debut and a huge story in the sport. Remember, they grabbed Dad's Bakkie when he jumped across into the Ford, which means they've got to pay the repair bill. Father and son, Louis and Christian Schliebusch, were attempting their first Baberspan 250. Don't know if they'd have made it across to the race had they known about the history, but their pace was good from the outset. They too, like the majority of the field, did not make it to the finish, but they too will be back. This really was turning into a huge story. The 2019 running of the same event, as with the 2018 event, saw huge numbers of cars on the sideline. This was once again going to be the same story of who could make it to the line. Suisse Marais and Jacques Leroux are farmers of this area, so they know exactly what they were in store for and knowing what to expect around the corner. A steady pace, staying out of trouble, paid dividends as they brought home their Hilux as the last of the finishers. Just 13 cars made it all the way to the flag. But more importantly, they took third place in Class E, a well-deserved podium for the pair, who slowly built their pace and knew it was going to be all about making it to the finish to be able to get the rewards. For Aki and Jandre Kruger, it was a similar situation, staying focused on finishing the race, knowing that with the demise ahead of them of Ahmadjada, the class win was within their grasp, and finishing in fine style they did to take a well-deserved Class F win, and that catapulted them now to the top of the Class F point standings. Not only that, the car was in great shape, meaning the repair bill going forward into round number 3 was going to be slightly less than the rest. After a disastrous comeback to racing at the first event, the Excelsior 250, Rodney Cook and Greg Parkin were relieved to finally see the finish line of the grueling Baberspan 250. They gave the Nissan all it had and soldiered on to the finish no matter what. It was just reward then, as they took 11th overall and a handy second place in Class E. The result bolstered the team, and it was all smiles for driver, navigator, and on the sideline, their very enthusiastic crew, headed up as always by national driver Dave Huddy. So that's the magical guys that made it inside the top 11. Tune in after the break as we cover the top 10, the stars of the Baberspan 250.